There's usually some kind of cycle that happens whenever there's a toxic pattern or toxic behavior within the family unit, and specifically between parents and children. In this case, the parents would be, or the parent would be narcissistic or have narcissistic tendencies, and also just is very toxic in the family. Now, I want to make this clear that I'm not making this video to bash parents. I think we need good parents. I think we need stern parents. I think we need strong parental figures within our society. I think mothers and fathers are perhaps the most important part of any kind of upbringing for a child. That is not to say that it is impossible to be raised by the world, because in my case, in many different ways, I was raised by the world. And I know people that have also been raised by the world in a similar way than I have. So, with that being said, I also want to make sure that the honor of mothers and fathers around the world that are virtuous, that are caring, that are loving, don't go unnoticed. And I just want to give a shout out to all of those mothers and fathers. But with that said, there is a pattern in these narcissistic parents and the narcissistic families that happens. There's usually three ways that this happens. There's the idealization phase, the devaluation or the dehumanization, and then there's the rejection phase. This is a very repetitive cycle, and you can actually even see this in many different kinds of ways. It may be the child doing really well in sports, gets a win or an achievement of some kind, and then following that, like the best example that I can think of is like in Breakfast Club, where the wrestler is talking about his father always wanting him to win, and we do not take losers in this family, son. And that is an example of a toxic parent where it's so competitive that you actually harm the emotional and spiritual life force of the child. So the idealization phase happens when there's a really good thing that the parent likes. There's a creation of idealization or love bombing. This is also something that happens. Then the devaluation or the dehumanization phase, let's say the child was, I don't know, playing basketball or something, or playing football, and he got one touchdown, but he could have gotten 2 or 3 touchdowns, or he made 2 or 3 3-pointers, but he could have made 3 or 4. So there's kind of this double-edged sword that the narcissistic parent slashes toward the child with, was like, well, you could do good, but you could do better. And this is where the child develops a desire or a need almost for perfection, for perfectionism. And this is one of the ways that you can discern whether or not you've actually had some kind of toxic parenting in your life, is when you're it's not that being a perfectionist is bad per se, because if you're your own biggest critic, I think that's actually really important. But when you do things to perfection for the sake of other people, so that you do not hurt other people, or you do not, well, I guess, yeah, hurt the feelings of other people, or you do not like step on eggshells around them for their sake and not yours. When you're putting other people before you for the sake of perfection, that's when it's not too good. And there is a difference between a symbolic self-sacrifice and giving yourself away to someone that doesn't really care. So in the rejection phase, there's usually some phrases that happen in these toxic situations, like, are you just trying to hurt me? Or why are you trying to do this to hurt me? Or all you want to do is hurt my feelings. And so the narcissist will go, or the toxic parent will go from this strong influencer in the idealization phase and the dehumanization phase right down to the victim in the rejection phase, to make you seem like you're the one that is only thinking about your own needs and your own wants, where really you were thinking about theirs the whole time. And so one of the other ways that these toxic parents and these toxic families one of the other ways that these toxic parents and toxic families have a problem within the culture and the environment is that there's a harsh reaction to any kind of criticism or any kind of critique, and they usually get very defensive. And it's usually, like, for example, if you're making dinner or something as the parent, and like you actually you burn the toast or something, I don't know, and there's the child, like, doesn't want to eat the toast because it's burnt. Like, you just don't want to eat it, burnt toast. And the parent then blames the child out of shame or humiliation for the parent burning the toast, even though the child may not have even been in the room at all before coming to eat it or something. I know that there's been many different kinds of times in which there was an exaggeration of the lies regarding these small things that happen. And sometimes the smallest things within a narcissistic household can become the biggest problem. It really is like having a dragon underneath the couch, and right now it's a baby, and you want to make sure the dragon gets out of the house, but every time you try to take the dragon out, the parents don't want you to, because it keeps you in fear. And that's really what the toxic parent wants, is to keep the child in fear, usually through some kind of control. Now, I've met a lot of different people and old friends that I used to have in my life that had very relaxed parents, and then some were very, very controlling. I know one of the people that I associated with in college would tell me about how they actually had a tracker on the phone even after, like, they were 18. And to me, that just didn't make sense. It wasn't like they're an adult. The only reason that I would see that to be needed is if the child, or I mean, they're an adult though. They're an adult. So actually, I really don't see the point, other than maybe wanting to just make sure that if there was a history of not following through or not being on time to places or wanting to be on class to time, like, I don't know. I just don't really see a point in that. And I don't think I would be able to justify that in any way, shape, or form after the child turns into an adult. But this was happening for this person long before they turned 18. And so they also had these kinds of parents where they were scared and afraid of the success of the child, and they would actually sabotage the child's opportunities in order to make sure that they're not more successful than the parent. If anybody, not just a parent, if anybody is trying to make sure that you do not get the opportunities that I don't want to say that you deserve, because I don't know if that's really the right term, but if somebody doesn't want you to get the opportunities that are available to you, that you're able to take and able to be competent enough for that opportunity, if they don't want you, if that person doesn't want you to take that opportunity, they are going to be a weight dragging in your life. And you do not want that, absolutely whatsoever. So, in response to the criticism and critique in any kind of situation with a toxic parent, let's say the child is wanting to the child doesn't feel heard, and the child wants to talk about, when I feel this way when you do that. The parent, the toxic parent, is going to look at this child and basically tell them one of two different things, usually. That they're too sensitive of some kind, or that their feelings really just don't matter. And this is a weird line to talk about in narcissistic abuse, because what you feel does matter, but what you feel about facts don't matter. That's the difference. So your feelings are absolutely correct, but how you respond to facts is completely up to you. Whether you like it or not, the facts are the facts. So if the fact is that this toxic parent is abusing you through shame or humiliation, or trying to not get you to take the opportunities that are available to you, or is trying to exaggerate themselves to make you look less than, this is a sign of just someone that isn't emotionally stable themselves. And if this is the fact, then your response, whether it be anger or sadness, or I don't think you'd be happy in this case. I don't think you'd be joyful either in this case when you realize this, but those feelings are justified. And those feelings are normal in that kind of situation. And it actually has been proven that emotional abuse can be as detrimental to one's psychological health as physical abuse. So the reason for that is because you're playing with the reality of the person's livelihood. You're playing with the reality of the person's perception through gaslighting, through manipulative tactics, through control, through all of these different kinds of things where the narcissist will not be able to remain calm when faced in these situations. So what can you do? What can you do if you're in this situation? If you have a toxic parent? Number one would be to set boundaries. Now, what exactly does that mean? And what exactly is a boundary? Because whenever I heard that in the beginning stages of my healing process, I was always like, well, what? Like, what does that even mean? Set a boundary? Like, what is a boundary exactly? And how do I maintain that boundary once it's set? So let's say uh, instead of going to your parents' house every week on Sunday for dinner, you only want to go twice a month, or even once a month. And so you say, look, I love you. However, given my responsibilities and my tasks at this time, I think it would be better for me to only come to dinner once a month or twice a month instead of every week. And usually in that kind of situation, if they are a toxic parent or a narcissist, they'll react in a negative way. They'll usually say something like, you don't care about them, or there's no respect in this house, or like, are you just trying to be tough now, or something like that. And you have to be calm and state your boundary once more. Look, I have a few different tasks and responsibilities that I need to attend to, and this is the time that I can make for you and with you. If that's not going to be something that we're able to compromise on, then please let me know. And then that way you put the ball in their court, but you're also protecting your own energy. And by protecting your own energy, you're free within yourself. And I never thought in my wildest dreams years ago that I could be in the presence of a narcissist and not have a nervous feeling and be okay and have that possibility. And now that I'm here, it seems like it's so simple to get to that point. It's just a matter of practice and persistency and perseverance in maintaining and setting those boundaries. And so when you protect your energy in this situation and you say that, if the response is still very negative, well, I don't even want to see you at all then if you're not going to come every week. Okay. That's going to be a test for you, because now they're wanting to see if you'll people please them to actually start coming to back to dinner once a week. Again, it's all about control. So they'll want to see whether you make an emotional response to people please them. And when you don't, and you just say, all right, well then let me know when you're able to accommodate for this once or twice a month, and leave it at that. And if they respond, you won't need to respond after that, unless they actually come through and say, okay, I'd like to see you once or twice a month. So you're not controlling them, because you're not telling them what to do. You're just saying, this is my availability. Do with it what you will. And that is a great way to just maintain a boundary. So that's just one example of a boundary, and how to set it and how to maintain it, and what to do when those boundaries are crossed, or if they're crossed at all. And always have a respectful exit strategy available to you. That's another thing to take away from this video, is if there's just a toxic situation that is just too toxic for you, make sure you have an exit strategy that is respectful, that is not compartmentalized, and that is simple, straight to the point. You don't need anything too extravagant. You can simply say, I have other plans, and leave it at that. Because in that case, they're not going to even want to listen to you anyway. So why waste your breath more than you have to? With all this being said, this is just some examples of toxic parenting and toxic narcissism in parenting. And I hope this message was useful and insightful for many people. And if you've made it this far in the video, please go ahead and give it a like and a subscribe or a comment. And then also, if you're someone that is healing on the narcissistic path right now, I do offer one-on-one consultations for healing. So please reach out to me in the email below, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace be with you.